All right, all right. We are live. We are live.
Hey,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
hey,
Welcome.
hey.
Hey, hey. So we are on a live episode, another live episode of the Black Mind Garden, where we are remapping minds so you can create a life you design.
Mhm.
And I'm excited today because I have a friend who has been on before. You all have seen him in the LinkedIn space with me, Noah Prince. And Noah he is a DEIB consultant and coach.
Indeed.
And yes, yes. And we actually today, the last time Noah was on, we talked about this paradigm of the insider outsider, um, like the insider outsider paradigm.
Mhm.
And as we've had conversations since then, we've gotten to know each other. We wanted to come back today and talk about how that threatens psychological safety. So before we get into it, hey Noah.
Hey, Maisha, Dr. Maisha. It's really great to connect with you in this space again.
Always, always. I would love for you to just introduce yourself and just share who you are once again so people know.
Yes, absolutely. So, my name is Noah Prince. I come out of the left coast, Washington State, out of the Seattle area, and I'm a Generation Xer, second generation American, white male. I've been on different parts of my human development journey, grounded in social justice, arts, creativity, and my own mistakes. Um, and I've come to a place in the last few decades where I've been able to bring my experiences and my passion for DEI, or really just for anti oppression, but for diversity, equity, inclusion. Found a way to bring that to other leaders, other white men, and help folks, particularly white men, liberate ourselves from some of our own mindsets and behaviors that we are unaware of,
Mm.
and plug intentionally in to the idea of an inclusive community where everyone has more of an equitable sense of belonging. That's really where I center my work and my practice, including on myself these days. And I love connecting with people like you in the work.
I appreciate that. And I really appreciate what you do because it's a very unique space that you occupy and a unique body of work that you're doing, a unique community that you're tapping into. And so I really want you to um, re emerge for us this paradigm of insider outsider, and then we can just dive into dialogue. But I think it's useful for people to have the context of this insider outsider paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my work is I would almost describe it as diversity and inclusion foundationally for white people, white men in general, leaders in corporate positions, folks that have often been cultural insiders and probably viewed themselves as individuals
Mhm.
and are maybe unaware of how to look further out into a diversity and inclusion lens so that they can be part of equitable practices.
Mhm.
So I a lot of my work is, ooh, Dr. Maisha, are we live?
Yeah,
Can you redirect me one more time?
redirect you.
I'm sorry, can you put that question out one more time?
Oh, of course, of course. Um, would love, love, love for you to. You're getting into the insider outsider paradigm.
Thank you, thank you.
It
So
happens. Listen, it happens. Now,
live though, I'm like, that's pressure right there. Ooh.
let me just no, let me just say, as a woman of a certain age who is managing the realm of the big M called menopause, sometimes the brain goes off into wonderland. And sometimes we have to bring it back. So never feel as if it's embarrassing if you need to ask me to ask the question again, because
Uh,
that is part of how we create safe spaces for people
yep.
and brave spaces, is to be able to understand that we are humans having human experience and creating. It's interesting, as I know you're about to go into, and
Oh
I'll
no,
ask the question again, but this is
thank
this
you.
is so good, right?
Thank
Because when we talk about this, this level, this area called psychological safety. People think, oh, this is a buzzword, this is just some trend,
Mhm.
but this is the real essence of it, right? Like one of the things is, of course, safe to feel included, safe to learn, but also safe to make a mistake.
For sure.
Right. And we do not create safety in our society,
Mm.
especially in organizations. In the industry that I grew up in, I say grew up in, like career wise, grew up in,
Yeah.
there was no safety for making a mistake or forgetting or any of that. So I just want to like emphasize, like it was just the perfect moment to like emphasize, this is what happens.
Mm.
This is what happens. And when you don't have this kind of environment where you are allowing for and creating space for people to make mistakes or ask a question again or allow their mind to drift here and there and everywhere,
Mm.
then you're threatening the safety of your organization. So, it was just one of those things I was like, "Ooh, let me just bring that into the space." Yeah.
That was the essence of a teachable moment. Thank you, thank you, thank you for that gift. Like you just took 10 pounds of anxiety off my chest.
Oh,
That
thank you.
was
I'm glad. I'm so glad. And thank you for being open to allowing me to do that.
uh, that's what relationship does, right? And
Mm,
that's what practice on of oneself while on this journey can look like. So
absolutely.
the insider outsider perspective is a way to help people with privilege in a system that has power imbalance
Mhm,
reorient themselves to a larger conversation and learn how to be a change agent or strive to be an ally or a comrade or the terminology that you may use. It's a way for folks to do that. And because all of us in this system have some forms of systemic advantage or privilege, and all of us experience parts of our identities which are for lack oppressed and parts of our identities which are probably privileged.
mhm,
Some of us have many parts of our identities which are privileged, like myself. Insider outsider gives us a foundational way to have that reflection and conversation. An insider is somebody whose identity, whose group identities, so some of my group identities are white, male, heterosexual, cisgender, middle class. Those group identities are often reflected in other power structures or institutions across our system. I have access to people in those networks. I have parts of my identity, the parts I just named, which I do not have to put time or energy into, which colleagues like yourself may be putting constant energy into to
mhm,
navigate systems and figure out how to bring their full self versus assimilation.
mhm.
So I have some ease in parts of those as an insider, which I might not be aware of, that I can navigate through that. And the insider outsider mindset allows me to begin to understand that through a series of mindsets and practices.
Yeah.
Thanks for the question.
Oh, I love that. I wonder, and this is interesting because as you talk about the insider outsider paradigm,
Mm.
uh, there's this sort of it occurs like there's this binary nature to it, and I love the way you described like there are many aspects of people's identity that are insider or outsider or a spectrum in between. And so I'd really like it made it very clear that it's not just about one and then the other. It's about where on the spectrum are you, and then how do you leverage or use where you are on the spectrum, especially if you're closer to the insider aspect,
Mhm.
to be able to make significant and meaningful change in the organization that really pulls in, and you said the word inclusivity, that really creates inclusivity for those who have historically been marginalized or considered or have been othered inside of that outsider paradigm.
Precisely. That's exactly it, Dr. Maisha. And I do believe that within that, you're also bringing, in a weird way, you can be an insider and assimilate kind of your spirit and your uniqueness
Mhm,
because you are in Like an example would be Europeans who over time, like my ancestors or recently, shed parts of their ethnic identities,
Mhm.
Eastern European Jewish, to join a white American box and move
Right.
ahead with more ease and power. And
Mhm.
so when an insider uh, to your point just now moves towards that point of creating systemic change for
Mhm.
inclusion, systemic
Mhm.
transformation for belonging,
Yeah.
they're also tapping into more of themselves. And I believe
Mhm.
there's deeper satisfaction, deeper relationships,
Mm.
deeper sense of information of what's going on around them, deeper sense of being able to tap into their true voice, curiosity,
Mhm.
deeper comfort when they make a mistake because they're around people that will have their back and help them reframe the question in the moment. All of that can happen when we're on that part of the journey.
I love that. I love that. And it's interesting because I would imagine too that people who find themselves on the lived experience of outsider can also attempt to assimilate
Most definitely. I
in
think the
order to
system demands it,
yeah.
which
Yeah.
which is a, I think if I'm here, let's explore that. To me, that can be a problem because it's like here we're not going to necessarily include you. And I think that's the thing with psychological safety. We're not going to include you for real in your
Mhm.
identity, or we don't even
Mhm.
know how to, or we're
Mhm.
fearful of that, or whatever
Mhm.
the case may be.
Mhm.
So we will put you in as this image that we've created of of what diversity looks like. And if you
Mhm.
can fit that image for us under our banner, then we're moving that needle. And I think we're living in times right now where that whole mentality is being deconstructed. Sorry if I jumped in
Yeah.
too soon.
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, I think that one of the things that, and it's interesting, I think that one of the things that is happening inside of the equity, diversity, inclusion space is that there is, um, I think there's a gap in the individual work being done
Mm,
to dismantle that mindset.
mm-hmm,
And I think that um, that is part of what threatens the psychological safety. So you still have, and I see this, and you probably see it too in the work. We still have. I see one of my friends, Malcolm. Shout out to Malcolm. Good afternoon. I see this happening where we have people who have historically been othered or marginalized, um, are assimilating, and you said because the system demands it, and that's true, and there's this internalized, um, there's this internalized oppression,
mm-hmm,
and so they fit themselves in and lose parts of themselves,
mm-hmm.
and there and that can be very dangerous. So one of the very first things that Dr. Timothy Clark writes in his book, and I like these four elements, and I don't quote everything about his book. I just like to speak from the elements, right? Is this safe to feel included?
Mm-hmm.
And so when we talk about this insider outsider or this spectrum, this paradigm, if you don't even feel safe to be included, if you don't even feel included, and I like that there's feeling included and then there's safe to feel included, because I think those are two very distinct things.
Mm-hmm.
You can be sort of included but not like, and for those of you who will be listening on audio, that was my air quotes when I paused, right? Included in my Austin Power voice. You can that's like the inclusion but not inclusion. It's the fake inclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to let you in, but we're not going to really let you in. And then
Assimilation of the tokenism piece.
exactly, exactly, exactly. Or with an organization that's really creating that psychological safety, psychological emotional safety, you can feel a sense of feel in your body, your spirit, your soul, your mind, your emotion, a sense of feeling included, and that cultivates that psychological safety.
What does that feel like for you, Dr. Maisha? Have you had that experience? And what does that feel like for you physically, mentally, psychologically? What does that feel like?
I love that question. What it feels like to me is I'm free to be myself
Mm-hmm.
without the threat of any repercussion, without the threat for any type of criticism or backhanded compliment
Mm,
or things of that nature. I feel at ease
mm,
when I feel safe to be included. I feel that my voice is easier to it's easier to express myself. It's easier to use my voice in all the ways that I use my voice
mm.
when I feel safe to be included. So I think I appreciate that you asked that question because
Yeah.
I had never really thought about what that feels like for me, given the work that I do. I just include myself.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, you're definitely a trailblazer in that sense, and that can take a toll. I mean,
Yeah,
that's still like the book says, the body keeps score, and like so much of
right.
this somatic work is bringing up these days, which
That's right.
I'm a baby too, so I need to link with people like you that can bring me into new levels of awareness and ascension.
Yeah. Well, given what we're talking about, one of the things I want to do is bring it more concrete, because I
Mm,
think that, you know, it's this very important work, and people need to know affects how it affects, thank you, Malcolm, how it affects organizations as a whole. Because I think that sometimes when leaders don't understand the ripple effect that the threat to psychological safety has, when they don't realize the threat that insider outsider brings to an organization as a whole,
mhm,
then it's not made a priority. And
mhm,
so one of the things I want to speak about is this idea of how this impacts employee retention, how it impacts engagement, and how it impacts well-being.
mm.
Because I think that is where a lot of organizations are struggling. I know, and particularly in healthcare, but I'm sure it's not isolated to healthcare.
Well, I mean, we saw in a lot of different forms. I think we tapped into this a little in our last conversation, but we saw in a lot of different forms and what uh, people term that exodus
Mhm,
during the height of COVID, during the height of kind of the racial justice
mhm,
protests against
mhm,
really systemic racism that we were
mhm.
seeing across the country. We did see so many women, so many Black professionals, so many people of color in professional positions choose to work from home, choose to be more entrepreneurial,
Mhm.
choose to find other paths and lanes. I would imagine that, and not just imagine, but I experience anecdotally in the conversations I have and in the work that I do,
Mhm.
psychological safety being an element of that. How can I ever really bring myself into an organization that's not founded on equity, that doesn't recognize power imbalances? Like that's an everyday, what the youngsters call gaslighting experience. That's an
Yep.
everyday expenditure of energy on top of what I'm already expending outside in the system. Do I really need to do that for benefits and pay, which may or may not align with my education and experience? So
Mhm.
I think those types of questions are being asked, and often psychological safety is used in a really light way, the way unconscious bias is, and it's like,
Yep.
he's just in this way. It's like, oh, that person, we just need to smile more to Debbie so she feels psychologically safe, and then we're very inclusive around here. And it's
Mhm.
so much deeper than that.
Right.
If
Right.
it's about
Ugh.
that. Sorry, back to you.
That's super. I love that you said that, because that's like the performative version, which we often see a lot happening of these days, is this performative DEI, this performative psychological safety.
Mm,
And really, if you think about how much it costs to replace an employee for most organizations, it's going to cost in the millions of dollars. When if you could just, you know, have your people be trained on what really comes with delivering this psychological safety. And it is a lot of the work that we're talking about, especially in this context, is really being willing to look at oneself and say, where am I not safe? Where am I safe and where am I not safe? Because it's not just the one. It's not just where am I not safe, but where are the areas where are the strengths in there?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
you can do more of that. You know what I'm saying? And so when it comes to, we talk about safe to be included, safe to learn, right? Learn without, and then safe to make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
So making a mistake piece, I think that is extremely important because
Extreme.
when you have and actually I'm going to backtrack. I know I'm going to, and right in the middle of my sentence, I'm going to backtrack back to safe to learn because one of the things that came to me as I was about to say is if a person's in leadership and they want to grow,
Hmm.
I mean, the aspects of that is learning,
Hmm.
right?
Exactly.
Learning new things. And if they
Exactly.
don't feel safe that there's an opportunity for growth based on their identity, whatever
Yeah.
that identity might be, if they
Yeah.
don't feel that then there's no safety to learn and grow,
Nope.
right? And so that pulls out. And then what happens is when someone in an organization realizes that there's no safety to learn or to grow, then their mind begins to wander. And if you think about the level of when you do provide that safety, the level of creativity that expands inside of an organization,
Mm.
you know, we
Mm.
have to think about, well, what are the benefits?
Hmm.
The level of creativity, and
Mm.
with creativity comes innovation.
Mm. Uh,
That was
Dr. Misha.
Yeah,
Okay.
saying with creativity comes innovation, and with innovation comes the bottom line.
Mm.
And so we have to look at, again, psychological safety being more than just a buzzword and this sort of performative act of smile more, be more nice, or have a positive attitude. It's not
Yeah.
that. In fact,
Mhm.
be nicer and have a positive attitude can easily be seen as gaslighting if put in
Absolutely.
the wrong context, right?
Absolutely. And they focus the target again back on the individual correcting their behaviors. Like somehow if you come with more confidence because we already want you here, then you'll feel psychologically safe here, as opposed to what you said just a moment ago, a chance for insiders
Mhm,
to reflect on our culture, to see how we can be more inclusive, to
mhm.
look at the ways that we welcome people in and ask them to bring their expertise.
Yeah.
So, absolutely. That's the true invitation of psychological safety, to use it as a report card almost on our organizational culture and see
Mhm.
where we can further transform. But I love what you're also saying. I love that you're bringing in this kind of growth mindset. Like we're almost most organizations already have segments of this work they're doing well. Let's
Yeah.
also spend some time understanding why. One,
Mhm.
maybe if it happens in one tiny area, it's an accident. But if you have it happen in a couple areas, you have good
Mhm.
practices going on, right?
Right.
It's not all like what you need to get rid of or what you're doing wrong. Let's look what you can build up. And a lot of folks don't take the time in their cultures to slow down and reflect on that, to
That's
have
right.
that conversation.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's important for people to understand that, or the leaders and organizations to understand that this type of safety, this type of like psychological safety, it really the leadership sets the culture. The leadership sets
They-
the tone. You know, the staff can be as psychologically be as emotionally intelligent to the nines, right? And then if they're bumping up against the leadership that has no context for that, then all that's happening is there's going to be gaslighting and suppression and oppression. And then what's going
Absolutely.
to happen is those people are going to leave and find a career home that meets their needs.
Absolutely.
And
Ab-
so if people want to, excuse me, if organizations want to deal with their retention problems
mhm.
or their engagement problems,
Challenges. Hmm.
right? Oh,
Hmm.
by the way, engagement, you of course, if your organization is not providing safe spaces for people to express themselves, to communicate,
Right.
then you're not going to know there's a problem.
Nope.
People, organizations will say, leaders say, "Oh, we don't have a problem with psychological safety." Well, how do you know?
Right. Or they'll do it for 1 year and they'll get flooded with some negative results and it'll scare the bejesus out of
Right.
folks. But it's like, well, that is what happens when we begin to be transparent. And we can look at it in two ways. We can either kind of try to go back into that unconscious incompetence, let me pretend like I never saw that, or we can recognize that we do have systemic challenges to the way we
Mhm.
did this, and we can course correct if we intentionally want to.
Yeah, build some resilience around receiving that feedback.
Right, right. Great word. And I like the way the direction in which you applied the word. Usually like, it's projected back on the marginalized individual. Build some resilience in the system for some feedback.
Yeah.
Part of practice. We are so far adrift from that on so many levels of in our society, it seems like.
Yeah, there's if we talk about resilience and the insider and the outsider paradigm, if you really look at, if you really look at things, the those who have been historically marginalized have the most resilience. We don't need to be told to be resilient. Not at all. We have the most resilience. And what we're seeing is that those who occupy uh, larger elements of insider identity
Like
are the people who have the least amount of resilience for feedback and criticism and growth.
absolutely.
And when you grow the muscle for receiving feedback and taking it, and I think there's definitely some trauma response inside of that, right? Well, we
Absolutely.
always have to acknowledge where trauma exists, and so when you have been penalized, again, this points to psychological safety and that element of safe to make a mistake, right? So that's
Absolutely.
sort of part of safe to learn. Part of learning is making mistakes. And
Absolutely.
so when you don't feel safe to make a mistake, then you don't even feel safe to contribute, which is a huge element of psychological safety, being safe to contribute. If you're in a place where you don't ever feel like you can contribute, then you will suppress yourself
Yep.
and you will project that on others.
And these days, sooner or later, unfortunately, you can't even suppress it before it will come up in a much worse way in so many ways. Like it's going to present itself. Like, so I agree with you. How do we create, just as you did for me earlier, how do we create gracious and safe space to make a mistake? And also how do we stop any form of harm when it's going on in the moment? Sometimes those two can be at tension with each other. We've
Mhm.
got to find a better way to have that dialogue, and insider outsider dynamics can be part of how we understand power within those and be more equitable.
I think one of the ways um, to do that is to begin to really honor people's humanity.
Mm,
And the way you do that is to first honor your own humanity. I
yeah.
think a lot of times when you weren't allowed to make a mistake as a child or as a trainee, then you adopt this mindset like it's not okay to make a mistake.
Mm,
But most times people are a lot of the things that is projected onto other people are things that are internalized for themselves as well. So the
indeed.
conversations that they're having externally are also the conversations they're having internally to themselves. And
Indeed.
so when we begin to allow ourselves to experience some freedom around mistake, but then owning it, not burying it, because people only bury mistakes because it's not safe
Mm,
to talk about it, right?
mm,
So when we start to,
mm,
create inclusiveness in and in honoring, like, we all have different filters, we all have different lived experiences, and we all make mistakes. That's like part of learning and part of humanity.
mm,
Then we begin to open the door at least.
mm.
But it's a practice and it's not an easy practice. As a parent, and this, let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, we're going there now, huh?
Oh, now come on now. I cannot go one episode without bringing out parenthood.
Let's go
Okay.
there. DEIB consultants who parent.
Because I mean, we talk about organizations, but one of the things I always tell the people who I train when I'm in front of the room is like, we're going to talk about some things that if you apply it here, it's going to transform your organization, but then go apply that stuff at home, because your home is a community. I always tell my son, we're a community. My son's like, we're not a community. There's just two of us. I'm like, where there is more than one, there is a community.
And that can look a variety of ways for a variety of families, but absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So, even inside of that, like, If you're not making it safe for the leaders in the organization, I wonder, are you making it safe at home for your own organization, your family organization?
Mm,
What
mm,
about community organizations? What about church organizations? What
mm.
about societies? You know, so there's so many arenas where this concept applies. You know,
Indeed.
when you think about insider, outsider, inside of the home, woo, right?
Yep.
Like it applies.
It
It
applies.
applies.
It applies.
And so when what I like to say is that I of course I talk about this inside of the context of organizations because that's the work I do on a day-to-day basis.
Mm,
But I empower people to understand that this work is not only valuable inside of organizations and it's invaluable, it's valuable inside of everyone's personal life as well. And I think that most people need to have something at stake in order to take on doing personal development work, which is sad. I mean, we should just be doing personal development work because that's part of right
growth and
growth and
development.
development. However, if you
Oh,
need to have something at stake, make it
no,
your
it's
family.
nature and nurture. It's nature and nurture.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm,
Absolutely. I
mhm.
agree.
Yeah. Well, we could go on and on because I mean, I could talk all day about this. And of course, you and I, we could really talk all day.
Indeed. And sometimes have.
We have indeed. We have indeed. I want to ask if there's anything that we haven't talked about in this context that we haven't brought. We have a little bit of time. We can still chat it up a little, but what is there anything that you feel hasn't been said that we could talk about? And we definitely have more conversations to come for sure.
What do you think are some of the behaviors or a skill that leaders can try on that leads towards them becoming more aware of psychological safety and how to self-reflect on the systems that they're a part of?
Oh, I love this question. I think that listening is the foundation of it
Mm,
all.
mm,
And it's listening differently.
mm,
What I'm going to invite leaders to try on is that, you know, when you're listening through your own set of beliefs, values, lived experience,
mm,
and try on stepping into another person's shoes for a moment.
mm.
Try on, you can, if you want to try it on in a safe space, try stepping into your kids' shoes when you're talking to them.
Mm. That's a good one.
That's impactful,
That's a good
right?
one.
And then when you're listening to someone, whether it be another insider or whether it be someone who has been historically marginalized, listen from their shoes. You can listen, you hear what you're hearing, and then, have yourself step into their shoes or even pan up into an observer position and
Mm,
look at the dynamic and see if you can see it.
mm,
And that's a good place to start
mm,
in terms of recognizing where there may be a safe space being created or threatened.
mm.
And of course, I'm always excited to share what we're up to.
But let's do that. Let's we've been up to something that I also think is right along with this question. Do you want to pull the veil on it, Dr. Maisha?
I'll tease it. I'll tease
All
it.
right. All right. All right.
So I appreciate the relationship that Noah and I have built, and we have been looking at how can we collaborate and bring the insider outsider paradigm trainings and awareness combine that with the work that I do in psychological safety. And
Mhm.
so have created a 4-hour, a half day training. And we're not gonna tell you everything about it now because
Nope.
we
We got more coming,
have
but
to and if you're someone in an organization who is interested in both of these paradigms and wanting to know, how does this relate? How could this benefit our culture? to benefit our organization. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to improve culture, but it's for the health of the organization.
Yeah,
It's for the health of the people you serve. If we're talking healthcare organizations, this is related to improving health equity,
absolutely.
improving well-being in your healthcare providers. If you're not in healthcare, we're talking about employee resource groups or business resource groups in all of your various communities, because the more they're taken care of, the more you're taken care of as an organization and as leaders.
Mm.
And so if you want to save some money from having to, deal with the high turnover, and you want to and you want to retain your talent, and you want to recruit talent that's going to stay,
Exactly.
then you want to be thinking about this type of work with your leaders, and especially your hiring panels. Right.
Real talk.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I like to make it plain, like because it's always like, what's the real
Bottom line.
tangible benefit to this?
Yeah.
It's not some airy fairy woo woo concept.
Right.
This has real implication.
Yeah.
But the key is you have to be willing to do the personal work.
Indeed.
So
And it helps to have folks around you that can help grow and develop with you, and folks that can help you try on behaviors and hold up the mirror as you do to find out what looks good on you and where you might want to tighten up your fit a little bit.
that's right. That's right. That's right. And so coming soon, we'll be
Coming soon.
that's right. We'll be sharing a little bit more details in the coming weeks about it. And if you're watching, if you're listening, and you know that, oh, this is something that I may want to get in on, reach out to either of us. I'm going to share all of Noah's information in the show notes, and you can hit him up on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Uh, and what is your website?
Well,
Your website?
LinkedIn, actually, definitely. LinkedIn is where I best for folks to reach out, period.
That's okay. Got it. And then do you want me to share your email address for people to reach out?
Absolutely.
So go ahead and share that with the audience then.
Let me put my glasses on.
Yes, put your glasses on. So I told you we're gonna have to read anything. I lied.
All good. Put in the chat, correct?
Yes, you can put it in the chat.
Okay.
And so I will include. So you'll reach out to Noah on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me. You all know how to reach out to me on any of these platforms that we're currently streaming. MindRemappingAcademy.com is the website, and then I'm on LinkedIn. And so if you're on LinkedIn, hit me up on LinkedIn as well. And just let us know that you saw this episode, and we'll get with you. We'll set up a call with you and go from there.
Absolutely.
Yes. And if you are a listener and you know someone in an organization, and you're like, you know what, I'm not in an organization that right now, but I do have friends, and I do have colleagues, and I do know executives who this might be valuable for. Share this episode with them.
Please.
Share this episode with them. I think this is very important. And so once again, I will, and I'll share your email address here in the public chat.
Thank you.
And so reach out to myself or Noah, and we look forward to seeing you on the other side.
Absolutely. And I look forward to seeing you or conversing more with you soon, Dr. Maisha. Thanks as always for an excellent conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's always lovely to chop it up, as we like to say. Chop it up. All right, y'all. Well, you all have a great rest of the day and a great rest of your week. And as always, stay empowered.
Hey.